So we just got what is potentially a massive leak for the second coming Diablo IV expansion, Lord of Hatred, and this leak is seeming to show off the second class coming with the expansion. Because during the initial reveal for the Lord of Hatred expansion, we got the first class of the Paladin shown off right away. We got told we would be able to play it with Season 11 if you pre-ordered the expansion, and then later on we learned that there would be a second class coming with the expansion that is not yet being shown, but this leaked image is seeming to show both of the classes from Lord of Hatred side by side, one of which being the previously unshown class. And it looks very interesting if this image actually ends up being real. Now, from what I could tell, this image originated from the Bilibili website, which is essentially Chinese YouTube, and then some other Chinese websites picked it up, and then it was also posted to the Diablo and Diablo 4 Reddits. And within this image, you have the Diablo 4 Lord of Hatred logo at the top right, just what would be the Chinese version of this logo. You have the Paladin off to the right with his shield, throwing out his holy hammers. Then to the left, you have the new class, which seems to be some type of caster class, but still with a big two-handed weapon. And what's also really interesting is this class's silhouette is fully based around red. Now, there are some dark purples within this character's magic, but most of it is completely focused around red. Their sword is partially red, or their magic is infused to their sword. Their clothing is primarily red, and then they're doing this big spell that is also primarily red. Now, if you're familiar with Diablo Immortal, one of the first things you would probably think of is the Blood Knight from Diablo Immortal, which is essentially a vampire class, and they obviously use a lot of blood for their abilities. A lot of their stuff is all focused around just being red. And while this character's magic is primarily red, this character doesn't really look like the Blood Knight from Diablo Immortal at all. This character actually looks very different, looks like it's designed very differently, but if you look at some of its magic besides being red, this character has this like ropey red magic around their arm, and the spell they're casting looks to be like a magical version of their hand. It's mimicking exactly what his whole arm is doing, just in this red magic, but the magic around his arm looks to be like this ropey red magic that could potentially be blood. Like they could be siphoning their blood, turning it into this ropey magic to use on abilities, or it could just be a more red magic, because this color of spell could also come from a Warlock. It could also come from a Demonology class, even though Demonology does kind of fit with Warlocks already. Like the Warlock from World of Warcraft, one of their specs is Demonology, but I think in Diablo, a class built around Demonology and subduing demons to use them for yourself would probably be a bit of a different thing than a Warlock, even though both of these things would basically be new for Diablo, new as playable classes, and generally pretty new for the lore in general. Even though some other lore tidbits do fit in with this, I think that it would still be a pretty new addition to the franchise. And either way you look at it, if this is real, this class looks really cool. The spell they're doing just looks awesome. Again, they have that ropey magic around their arm, this kind of creating this big magic hand of what they're currently doing that could probably be like a big swipe in front of you or something like that. But what's also quite interesting is that even though this looks to be some type of like dark caster, they also seem to be more of a frontline caster, because this character is using a big two-handed weapon, probably a big two-handed sword, unless they're adding in like another big two-handed weapon that's similar to a sword. And this character physically is also jacked. So it looks like this character would be somebody that would be on the front lines, even if they're still primarily using magic, which is definitely something a bit different compared to a lot of casters you see in a lot of other games, and that we already have in Diablo 4. None of our casters are really frontline casters that are going to be in melee range the whole time, but just using their magic there. Now, another piece of this character's design that may point towards it being real is that originally we got to see the second character's darkened silhouette in the gameplay trailer standing behind the Paladin. Now, in that silhouette, they looked much more like a Warlock. They looked hooded. They had these kind of weird, kind of almost spiky circular things coming off each side of them. But if you look at this character, there's actually a few things that look similar. Next to the hilt of their sword, they have these two curved things coming off the side of it, those look very similar to some of the jagged things coming off the silhouette of the character we see in the trailer. Now, they're not exact, but they look very, very similar. And the silhouette of that character also looks like they may be wearing like robes or something long like that. And this character has a long red cape, and maybe they just took their cape and wrapped it a bit more around them, which would also fit that silhouette pretty well. Not only that, but in the silhouette, we see the character looks like they're wearing a hood. And when we look at this revealed character, they do have a hood type thing on. They have like this red hood on, but on the front of it, on the top side of their head, they kind of have this mask that looks to have kind of horns coming off the sides. Now, even though that's a bit different than the silhouette could have been just at a different angle that didn't show the things coming off, because this hood could very well be what we see, and it's just at a different angle to where we don't see the little spikes coming off. So a lot of elements of this revealed character do actually kind of fit the silhouette of what we saw, because most likely showing that silhouette, they weren't going to show just the character like in combat. The character was standing there, so maybe this character does actually like wrap their cape around them. Maybe they put up their hood or something when they're not in combat. So there are quite a lot of things of this revealed character that do actually fit the silhouette design when you take into consideration them being in the battle stance here and them not being in a combat stance in the trailer. And I will also say that pretty much everybody that's been theorizing about this class have theorized it being some form of dark caster class. The silhouette seemed like a caster, and everything that we've gotten so far pointing us in any direction has kind of said that this class would be something kind of opposite to the paladin. Not an enemy, but kind of opposite in the strength or abilities they use. We have the Holy Avenger, Holy Light class of the paladin using the power of the light in heaven. And now we have what looks to be a dark caster, probably using the powers of hell, subduing demons, or potentially just using blood as some of their strength as some of the things they're casting. But I do think either way, this is going to be much more of a dark caster. We also had the different cosmetic armor sets come with the expansion that is one side holy and one side dark. And that one dark side is more of like a gray. But even though we see like red and dark purples, it looks like in this image of this class, they could very well still be using darker colored spells. Even the dark purple at the bottom of this, maybe it actually is more gray and it just looks more purplish because it's around all of this lit up red. So this is something I would have fully expected for this other class, legitimately be something very different from the paladin and almost be opposites. Now, if this image ends up being real, I think there's an incredibly high likelihood that this will be one of the big reveals we get in the upcoming Diablo showcase. It was announced for the 35th anniversary of Blizzard as a whole, and we do know there's going to be some pretty big reveals for the entirety of the Diablo franchise. Revealing the new class also seems like something that they would very much do. I also would not be surprised if they also drop this class with like season 12 or something like that. I could very much see that, where they release both of the classes before the expansion, so all the player base gets a chance to play these classes. They get to do a bit of balancing like they're doing with the paladin for season 12. So once we get into the expansion, they're on a much more level playing field with all the other classes, and we can just jump into all of the massive new pieces of content and system overhauls coming with the expansion. So I could also very much see that they reveal this class, they show off some of it, and then they're like, oh yeah, you're going to be able to play this at the start of season 12 or something like that. And for me personally, this does look like a really cool class based upon this image. And even if this image ends up being fake or something like that, I still think getting a darker spellcaster type of class, a demon summoner or a warlock or even like a blood knight or something would all be pretty cool, especially based upon this image having like a close ranged caster that's still in melee combat all the time, but also was primarily focused around using their spells while in there, or even having a demon summoner subduing demons and then summoning them. What could also be really cool to be able to just go subdue demons ourselves as like another demon or more demons to use. So we get to choose between like any demons we could go fight. And maybe when you go subdue them, it adds them into the options you can use for like summon demon or something. And they would have different effects depending on the demons you go and subdue. So there there's so many just really cool options with a dark frontline caster that makes me definitely really excited. But that's all I want to go over, so thanks for watching.